You want to grab my water real quick?
Sure.
It's just sitting by the leg of the table there where I was sitting.
That's fine. People are here for you.
Audio is now on. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Netwurk Chatter. This is the bi-weekly show dedicated to talking with folks who have contributed in some way to the Vast Grimm universe. If you're not familiar with Vast Grimm, it's the first RPG published by Infinite Black, a brutal sci-fi horror setting where each member of your legion is not only trying to survive, but maybe they'll try and save what's left of humanity. It's compatible with Merkborg and uses their third-party license, and you can find out more about it at vastgrim.com, and the Pledge Manager is still open on GameFound. I'm Brian Colin, the host. I'm also the creative lead for Vast Grimm. On today's episode, I want to welcome Grady and Theo from Gallant, Goblin, and they wrote Judas for our upcoming Volatile Verse anthology series. We'll talk more about that later because we'll get all into that. First, before that, I'd really like to have Grady and Theo tell you a little bit more about what they do, because I know they do a lot with Gallant Goblin, and they'll be able to say it way better than I ever would. I'll leave it off to you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Brian. First of all, I think I've been mispronouncing your last name since the moment I met you.
That's
So
okay. I don't get upset about that.
It's good to hear you say it out loud. I need to have everybody say their name for me when I meet them. But yeah, I'm Theo. This is Grady. We are the co-proprietors of the Gallant Goblin, which is primarily a YouTube channel where we try to review products and videos that are efficient, and it will show you everything you need to know about minis and terrain and adventures and source books so you can know how to best spend your hard-earned cash. Because we can't all buy everything, even though we might want to. And so we try to give you the shortest video possible so you can get as much information as you can. And our other goal is to, especially with minis, a lot of the minis are sold in like random booster boxes. And so you might end up with minis that you have no idea what to do with. So we try to share with you the lore behind each of the creatures or people that you might collect so you know how to use them in your stories and try to help you with your storytelling. So that's primarily what we do. We've also branched off into writing adventures, which is primarily Grady. So I'll let Grady speak to some of the things that we've written. We've written, the Adventure for Vast Grimm, and what are some of the other ones?
So far we've mostly stayed in the 5e universe. We have several publications on the Dungeon Masters Guild or DMsGuild.com DMsGuild.com,
Awesome.
which is where you're actually allowed to use Wizards of the Coast proprietary content. Because with RPGs, right, there's always multiple tiers of kind of gaming licenses. Like with Morkborg, it's, I think, fairly open. Other ones, it's like, you can use our rule set, but you can't use our named characters or certain types of our brand centric monsters like the holders for D&D and things like that. We do that there. We actually recently got one of our bestsellers available on print on demand as a hardcover. It's a magic item supplement for the Theros setting, so that's been really cool. And so that's kind of how we got our feet wet in terms of learning. Also through the RPG Writer Workshop, which is run by Ashley Warren. So like, if anybody out there is thinking like, hey, I want to write an RPG one day, she actually has the winter edition of it coming up. It's 1 month, and over the 1 month you get lessons on basically starting from brainstorming to writing to editing to playtesting to layout to releasing a 3,500 word adventure. Don't go longer than that, because everyone wants to write the next big adventure, right? But 1 month isn't a very long time.
No.
And so that's a great opportunity, and they have paths for like different systems or system agnostic. So like, if you want to write a Vast Grimm adventure, even like, you can go take that workshop and then put out something using the license that Brian put together. I don't know why I'm getting you and like the viewer you confused now. So like, but that's how we learn, because we had started playing D&D, but we were like, how do you write for D&D, right? It's a difference between like, I can parse this versus, or like a foreign language, right? Like I can understand it, but I don't know how to speak it, sort of thing. And there's a lot of that. And then we've recently been writing for Satine Phoenix and Jameson Stone over at Apotheosis Studios on their Siren Battle of the Bards. Vast Grimm has really been our first foray out of 5e, which is something that we've been really wanting to do, because there's just so many cool systems out there. And of course, Morkborg was very critically acclaimed, so we were just like, what is this? Like, and then we were reading it. I was like, really? Like, what is
What is
this?
this? and after the two, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it wasn't when you first contacted me about Vast Grimm. It was shortly after I had listened to the folks over at the Glass Cannon podcast play their Merc Bourge game, and so I had heard it being played by some professionals, and so I was like, oh yeah, I can really dive into this.
There's so much fun and weird quirkiness. Like for me, it's all about throwing some of the humor into the grossness of it and not just making a complete and total true horror. But one of the things that I loved was when the two of you put together the video that was like the overview of Vast Grimm during like right before the Game Found campaign. And that completely, like when you did that, I was like, well, if we do get to the point where we're able to have guest adventures, you need to be a part of it, because I could tell that even though like this was completely new to you, you were definitely really excited about it, and that completely pulled me in.
That was one of my favorite videos that we've done this year. We broke out. I went shopping for some costume pieces. We did a dramatic reading. Oh, some fun stuff we did.
Glasses were like from Amazon, I think.
Yeah, we got some like funky like little LED style glasses. That was a lot of fun.
Theo loves sci-fi. Like he wishes everything was sci-fi. So like this was in certain ways like right up his alley too.
Oh, fantastic! And when I saw that you had like you added a Vast Grimm channel on your Discord, I was like, okay, now like all of a sudden things were starting to get bigger than what me and my friend Ross were starting to like what we had started creating, which was great. It really started to feel like it was going. There were going to be more people playing, even beyond the people that backed the project. So that was totally rad.
And you had such a successful campaign too. I saw so much engagement with it and so much excitement about it, and even like the dice sets and everything that y'all had put together, and the artwork and the layout is so much fun. Like you had really just done an amazing job putting it all together and just built up that community yourself. So congratulations.
Thank you. So you talked just a little bit about having played D&D before, doing like the getting into writing it and always being interested in that. Can you tell me individually like where and like how you started playing with the funny shaped dice? Because everybody has an origin story to how they started playing RPGs. Some people just started in recent years, and some people it goes way back to elementary or middle school. And I love to hear how everybody got into the hobby, because there's so many great stories to tell about that.
Yeah, we started I think in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. I think we probably got in it two reasons. I guess groups brought us in. One, we used to go to PAX South all the time when that was still a thing, and I haven't had PAX South in a year or two. But there we got to watch Acquisitions Incorporated play D&D, and that was a ton of fun, and that got us in. And then we went from this TV show Community to Dan Harmon's Harmon Quest. And so I guess a lot of people got brought in through Critical Role. We got brought in through Harmon Quest and Acquisitions Incorporated. And for whatever reason, I decided like this is something that should be our new hobby. And so in 2017, I brought together Grady and one of my coworkers who was a special education autism teacher and a couple of other folks, and we just sat down and started playing the D&D starter set with Phandalin, and took that and branched it off into Storm King's Thunder. And then at some point, my Warlock player decided that he wanted to change from having his patron be Demogorgon to take on one of the new subclasses that had come out. And I decided, I was kind of interested in doing Strahd, Curse of Strahd. And so I decided, oh, your new patron is going to be Strahd. And now they've kind of transitioned from Storm King's Thunder over to Barovia. And we're still playing the same campaign that we've been playing since the beginning. And that's kind of how we both got into it. And I kind of drug him along kicking and screaming, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah. Notably, we never resolved the Giants in Storm King's Thunder. So now we've just ruined 2 planes of existence.
Nice. Excellent.
And I think, and Grady, you can speak to this too, but like I think that Grady's always been a writer, a storyteller, a filmmaker, and I think he saw in D&D an opportunity to tell more stories, and so that's kind of what a lot of your interest was in. I think you do want to get into game mastering, but also writing stories.
Yeah, and surprisingly, D&D was a bit of a rough transition for me, and because I know like a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, you can be whatever you want to be and tell whatever story you want to tell, but like I guess I grew up playing video games, right? And like RPGs and like things like even like Knights of the Old Republic, when you could you could choose your alignment, was already like mind blowing. And so So like I kind of came into D&D still with a very video gaming mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like the world's wide open, but I realized I don't actually like know what to do with a wide open world. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
dog that finally caught the car.
Right.
And like and so yeah, so I was like, trying to like min max my character, and I was like, oh, the character's got to be like really good at everything because that's how you beat the game. And I remember like when we were writing the story, like my character was like a fire based sorcerer, and he
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh well, why don't, and part of the origin story was that like my dad was a warlock who had made a pact, and that kind of partly was what brought into my bloodline. But then like his patron called in the pact, and he had
Mm-hmm.
to like sacrifice my mother and like burn her alive in front of me. And he was like, well, why don't you have a thing where like you're a little bit afraid of fire, so even though it's part of you and you use it, there's that
Mm-hmm.
hesitance. I was like, what? No, like why would I ever do that? And then of course,
Flaws are
like,
good.
yeah, and then Critical Role season 2, of course,
I was
like,
before that. I was going to throw that out
Excellent.
and Liam
Nice.
O'Brien played it so beautifully. And of course, I'm not an actor, and I probably would not be able to do it that well. But I was just like, oh yeah, like that's the storytelling possibilities. That's what makes the game, because it's not about beating the game. It's about exploring the characters and helping each other tell the stories of your characters. And it took me like 2 years to really understand that. But now that I do, it's kind of like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say too, like that part where your lowest stat is where the fun of role playing is.
mm-hmm.
You know, if you're low charisma, if you're low intelligence, if you're low wisdom, that's where you find your inspiration for role playing. And so I always dug that too.
Yeah.
And how to be creative, because finding creative ways, especially if you are personally different than who your character is, it's harder to break out of like knowing what you know or thinking how you think, especially if like the intelligence is low, or if like I tend to always when playing like 5e, I always, or D&D, I tend to always put stuff in charisma because I always want to be one of the most like chatty people at the table.
And I just was thinking back to sitting in Tallahassee, I think it was or Thomasville or Georgia or Tallahassee, Florida, in my hotel room playing Vast Grimm with you,
Uh-huh.
in the playtest, and that character pretty much was nothing but weaknesses, and how much fun I had playing that character. Yeah, I just brought that back. That was probably the most fun I've had role playing,
Oh,
and that
wonderful.
character that I got to do, like that was so much fun. I had such a great time in that game.
You did such a wonderful job, and the cast that we had, it was so fun to play with y'all. And I really, over the course of getting to run playtests with people, it's been really refreshing, because usually I just play with the same group of friends, bits and pieces of those friends that I've been playing with for 20 years off and on. But getting to play with new people and seeing how other people interpret rules and interpret things, like, some stuff we wrote that's kind of a joke, and like one's like a nod to like what we do in the shadows by calling somebody an energy vampire, and then Michael took it as being a literal vampire, which was rad. It's just everybody interpreting things and making it their own, which is wonderful.
Yeah, you've done a great job of putting a lot of freedom into the setting and into the rules, so that you have enough structure to, play the game, but there's a lot of room for interpretation and fun. And so that's what makes it really great.
Thank you. With talking about the writing that you've done and what you've recently worked on, do you have future projects that you already have mapped out? And I mean, I know you said Grady has a film background, and it really shows in all your video work. I mean, it's really very, very wonderful quality videography. So, do you have anything that's going to do more tying some of the stuff that you're writing into that at all?
Do you want to talk to it? We have.
You can start with the actual plays, maybe.
Yeah, two things that brought to mind. We were talking about some of our writing projects. We're also working on the next Uncaged book in the Uncaged anthology for D&D,
Awesome.
which actually Warren not kickstarted from the Kickstarter website, but like got off the ground, the actual original use of the word Kickstart, which is sort of a feminist reimagining of some of the D&D characters and tropes that maybe didn't have the best portrayal back in the day. And this book is all about the goddesses. And
Awesome.
so we both pitched our ideas for the goddesses, and we both somehow got accepted into the book. And so I'm writing an adventure about Blibdlepoop, who is the Kuatoa goddess, who
Awesome.
is completely out there, and I'm having so much fun writing that one. Grady, you want to talk about which one you're doing?
So mine is Lira, the god of lies, not to be confused with Lira, spelled differently, but otherwise pronounced exactly the same. The goddess of joy,
Mm-hmm.
which led to some initial confusion during the pitch process. But yeah, she's the goddess of kind of deception and illusions and a neutral character, and kind of tried to take it in a different direction where she's actually, instead of one goddess, because like she's been like murdered and brought back like almost as many times as Mistra, and that imagining her as maybe kind of like a series of mortal women who share this spark of divinity, and so they have power and they can act as a goddess, but less than kind of some of the other ones, and they have a limited lifespan, so they have to try to pursue their goals with the time that they have, and what each of them chooses to do, and how a lot of times they're like from minorities or groups that were oppressed or like lost in a war and are facing these difficulties, and so they have to lie and they have to build illusions and tell fake stories to keep their own true selves alive, and kind of try to tell that story about kind of that aspect of it, and why that makes sense and why there's power in that.
Awesome. That sounds like a great experience and a great opportunity for the writing for both of those.
And he has some experience writing for the gods. He also has a book that's on DM's Guild now called Kill Ball, which is a sort of
Parody of
Kill Bill. It's got some great
Awesome.
cover art, which is his. Grady wanted to take a shot at writing a level 20 adventure, and it was that's a huge thing to do.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so I think level 20 is kind of fun though. A lot of people are like worried about balance and like, you know, what if the players do this and what if they do that? I'm like, at level 20, like people openly ban like certain classes because those classes that are officially created by wizards are broken. And so like I'm like, just in a lot, it's like it's about the story, and as long as everyone's having fun, like
that's all that matters.
That's really what matters. And so it's kind of almost freeing, because then you don't have to worry about like, you know, is this gonna kill them, or are they gonna get trapped here? Because probably someone has a way around it, and you can mostly plan on that. And so it's actually kind of interesting in its own way.
And yeah, as Grady alluded to earlier, the other project we've been working on are actual plays. We turned our game room here in the house into a studio.
Awesome.
And it's got lights and cameras everywhere and microphones. And I've been working in the Houston community. I've been gathering up professional improv actors to come and be our players. And so every Wednesday night at this particular time, we have our. It was my problem. I didn't realize what day we were gonna. We just started this, so you had us booked ahead of time. But yeah, we're doing some short adventures to start with. We're doing some adventures out of Candlekeep Mysteries.
Cool.
Just little short adventures to kind of try out different actors and different settings and get all our tech work put together. So we're doing a couple of those. We have a Pathfinder adventure that we're going to do. We're getting ready to do our first long-term campaign, which is going to be The Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Awesome.
And a few other things. And I think we're going to probably really do a different take on Wild Beyond the Witchlight, where we're going to write a lot of our own story for that. Been reading through the book. Wild Beyond the Witchlight is much more of a campaign setting than it is like a thorough, like cohesive story. So there's a lot of pieces there that we can work with, but we want to tell a more thematic, narrative-driven thing on top of that. So we're looking forward to that.
Awesome, and that keeps everything fresh, especially for the GM being able to make more things up on the fly, which is how I prefer to play things if I can, because it keeps your mind going all the time.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see different people's takes on the same adventure, and you can often get a lot of ideas. Oh, they did this with Storm King's Thunder, and they did that with Rise of Tiamat, and like, oh, it's like I can change these things and add to them and do things, and I think a lot of people feel like they need a little bit of permission to be able to do that.
Yes.
So if they kind of lack the confidence or the experience to do that, like, so seeing other people do things can help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Theo. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think Theo was saying that, like, because he also recently took some improv classes to try to improve his DMing skills, and I think at one point around that time frame, he ran, I think the introductory sample adventure for Vast Grimm for his regular home game group, because they had a few people down, and so instead of doing a side quest, he was like, "You want to try Vast Grimm?" And and afterward he was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is the hardest my brain has like ever worked," because he's like, because it's much more of an open system in terms of the, you've got the structure. This is what the goal is. This is where the characters are. But like what's happening like at any given moment, you have to make up how the dice rolls, like what the results of that are. You have to craft the narrative around that on the fly in a way that is very different from D&D. And I think writing for it was really kind of freeing in a way too, because you kind of also knew that, and you knew the DM was coming in ready to take more initiative, and so you could just kind of give them the hooks and a few key milestones along the way, and trust that they can kind of link it together in a way that's exciting for their group.
I was thinking.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say real quick that when I did that first Vast Grimm playtest, or with my group here that I DM'd, I ended up, it was going to be, I was doing my regularly scheduled Humblewood game, which is
very different.
A hard left turn into Vast Grimm. So if you're not familiar with Humblewood, it's a game by Hit Point Press. That is, you're playing cute little animals and a little adventure with animals. And one or two people couldn't show up. And when I'm missing more than one player, we were like, we're going to do something else, or we're just not going to play tonight. And I was like, hey guys, I'm doing this thing. Y'all want to play this other game tonight? And I can just wing it on the, play it on the fly. And so that's what we did that night. So that was just so great to be able to take Humblewood and turn it into that with that group.
That's really such a turn.
Yeah, turn expectations on their head and just have fun with that. I see a lot of chat. They're talking about like level 18, level 20, and how much fun those are to play. I was going to say too, if you are interested in that, the book, the Uncaged book, is a tier 4 book,
17 to 20.
Yeah, so
wow,
it's going to have
gods.
Yeah, so if you're looking for that kind of thing, when that Uncaged book comes out, be on the lookout for that, because it's going to be full of those adventures. If you want to play with the gods.
Just a minute ago, Grady, you were talking about being a little freer about the adventure that you wrote, and knowing that the GMs were going to come in and be able to help kind of tell the tale a little bit. As we get into that, and it was awesome to hear that it was a good experience running the Vast Grimm game, especially after the Humblewood game. But I want to touch a little bit on the Judas adventure. If anybody's watching now and they don't want to hear about one of the adventures that's going to be in Volatile Verse, the adventure that Grady and Theo wrote, now would be a good time to tune out.
Or you could go watch Candlekeep Deconstruction on.
That's right,
the
exactly.
Gallant YouTube channel.
Now, we're not going to, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I do want to talk just a little bit about it, part about your writing experience and that, but also one of the things that really, like, I'll read a little intro that was part of it, and then I want to talk just a bit about what one of the many things that really excited me about the adventure. And also, before we get into that, Volatile Verse is going to be an anthology series of little mini adventures written by guest writers. We had a lot of them that were stretch goals as part of the Game Found campaign. They're slowly funneling in now, and as they come in, I'm starting to do the layout, and we're creating art for them. So I'm really excited to get to work on the layout of this one, because I just wrapped up one of the other adventures, and yours is next on the next up on my docket to start working on. So I'm very excited about that. But from the book, Telestation is a glimmering jewel amidst a debris field on the border of the bitter void. Protected by a force field and looking shiny and new, it periodically sends out encrypted transmissions containing puzzles that reveal its location when solved, along with a message that it's a haven for scientists and seekers of the Gate of Infinite Stars. One of the things that I just was so taken by is the idea of pheromones in the game to help keep people that are infected, keep the parasitic pains at bay. I was like, never would have thought of that, and it was just such a brilliant addition, and I love that. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you went that route, or what might have inspired it?
I was the one who kind of came up with that piece of it, and I was at first worried that would kind of maybe soften the universe a little too much. So I wasn't quite sure how you would react to it. But in this specific case, it was that, and I guess trying not to go into
we can give little bits and pieces without revealing the whole adventure.
So I mean, you know that it's Vast Grimm, right? So something's gonna go wrong, and so
Of course.
so this station is not necessarily what it seems, and so it was just the idea that it was kind of trying to bring, in some cases, some strategy and some human elements to what is generally this kind of overwhelming, very alien threat, right? And part of the idea of this was that, maybe they want, in some cases, people to cooperate with them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess as a hint, right? The title, the
Right.
Judas, is kind of a name for it's the Judas goat in in farming and butcher shops, where they have an animal that that leads the other ones to slaughter, and that one gets out fine. But the other ones think it's safe because that one's fine, and so in situations where they would want to work with people, right? There is this kind of, when I was reading the setting, feeling that there's this malevolent intelligence behind it, even though it's just very brutal and has a very different sense of morality, if any, than us.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe there are situations where they would say, hey, come work with us in exchange for something. And the pheromones were kind of this way to be like, part of it was to make them feel like maybe they had an upper hand, because well, I'll be fine, I can keep things under control. And the other part of it is even to hide it. So like maybe the Grimm bring this person in and they're like, oh, you'll be fine, we promise to spare you, but they're secretly infected now. But because of these pheromones, they don't know it. But if they betray the Grimm and they leave and they lose these pheromones, well, bad things happen, right? So there's a kind of extra strategic element there of this
Mm-hmm.
that seemed to make sense within the context of their motivations.
Yeah, I loved it. I was really taken with that part of the story. I mean, there was so much to the adventure, and I think people are going to get a lot of playtime out of this adventure, which is great. There's so much to do. Um,
It's almost like you could probably turn it into a little mini campaign. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of storytelling available on that station, depending on what you want to do with it.
there sure is. And one of the things I love is seeing like how you two approached it, and then how the other stories that have come in and how they're all very different. So everybody that read through the PDF took something from it and just saw it in a very different direction, and that's part of how, like, what's very exciting to me for other people to be writing adventures. And hopefully once I get it laid out, I'll be able to run people through your adventure, because we're starting to play test internally the adventures that have come through, which is a lot of fun, and I can't wait to tell you both how it goes.
How does it feel to have people telling these stories in your universe?
It's so surreal and weird. I mean, because like it was like a year and a half ago. It was in like end of November, December. That not this. I guess yeah. It's almost 2 years. That would make sense.
I have no
Math is
conception
bad.
of time anymore. I don't
Time
even know what
concepts are
day.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we just had the idea to make it, and so it's so weird. And like interviewing you now about a story you wrote in the universe, it's very it's awesome. I love it. I love that. I love the idea of other people taking it and running with it, and telling stories. And um, uh, I'll talk about a game jam that we're launching. Well, I'll mention it now. Friday, we're launching our first game jam on Itch, so other people can write little bits and pieces. It's kind of spooky and horror-ish themed, a spoiled spoils jam of things that people would find that are like food that's gone rotten on a spaceship or a space station for many years. So I'm curious to see what people that are now that have gotten the PDF outside of the guest writers that might come up with for weird things.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I was curious, like, do you ever feel protective, like, other people coming in and staking their territory in your universe and defining some of the reality? Like, do you feel protective of it? You're like,
Not
oh
yet.
no,
I
that's not how
mean,
it works.
no, I mean, because for me, like role playing, especially like I started role playing at a very young age, and at the age where I probably didn't comprehend a lot of the rules and things, especially at the very beginning, going on anyway, or I didn't pay attention to them. I've never been good at sitting down, reading rules and reading stuff and like it soaking in. I experience it, and that's how I tend to learn. So I always like went off and made up my own stuff off of what was there anyway. So the idea of other people doing that, No, I don't feel the ownership like that. I need to protect it and keep what's right. Whatever you're playing at your table, as long as it's not hurting anybody else, then it's
Yeah,
that's great.
exactly. 100%.
So since you wrote that and you've got a lot of 5e projects in the works, do you see yourself writing other non 5e slash Pathfinder stuff, since Pathfinder still is kind of along those lines?
I don't know how much we want to talk about that.
I don't know if I want to commit to actually doing it yet, but yeah, with the launch of Pathfinder and Starfinder Infinite, we're certainly looking into dipping into that and seeing how that goes.
Yeah, I was just messaging Aaron Shanks, who is the head of marketing over at Paizo, like right before we started, and I dropped some ideas of what we might want to work on for Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite. So we are percolating ideas because I really dig the Pathfinder and Starfinder lore, and I love that they have these dedicated Lost Omens lore books, and I keep like getting angry at Wizards of the Coast. I was reading through because oh my god, we finally got on the Wizards of the Coast press list. So we're actually getting some of the books early. We've been doing this for 3 years, and we finally got on the press list. And so I was looking at Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, and I was looking through it today, and I was getting frustrated because there were little bits of lore on one particular person scattered through the whole book. Because the book is a bestiary, it's a storytelling guide on how to craft dragons and story hooks for dragons, but it's not a great lore book. Like, it does all the lore kind of comes third or fourth, and I'm like, I just want a book of, like, tell me who all these important dragons are, like where the dragons came from, where did Tiamat come from, where did Bahamut come from, who are all the great worms, who are the crystal dragons, who's the ruby dragon, like, I just want all that. Like, I don't need the bestiary in this book. I don't need the storytelling guides and the adventure. I don't need roll tables. I just want the lore so I can know more about this universe, and that'll help me tell better stories in your playground. And I don't know what we were talking about.
but that's definitely not how their books are laid out at all.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that they don't do more of that. They have the capacity clearly to do more books, but they're either like source books or adventures, and there's no lore books like Pathfinder does. So like I just love reading through the Pathfinder lore books and the Starfinder. Starfinder doesn't do it quite as much, but Pathfinder does. And so if we can contribute to that and play in that playground, I really want to.
Yeah, and I was like circling kind of back to me having trouble getting into D&D. Part of it was that because I would be like, okay, we're in this town or we're going to Waterdeep. What's in Waterdeep? Like who are we? Like, my character's from Waterdeep. I'm supposed to know things about Waterdeep, but like I don't have anywhere to go to. There's no player's guide. There's barely any 5e lore. I'd have to go back and buy like the 3.5e books. And then like when I was like doing research on Pathfinder for one of the mini sets, and I was like, this god, and they did this, and they did the Trial of Starstone. There's all this. I was like, oh, this is so amazing. They have personalities, and I have names that I can just reference, and it was so cool. And
yeah, I like all the pantheon and stuff in Pathfinder too. Like having that lore and magic, or what's it called? Gods of Magic book is so much fun.
And I know the older D&D players always get very defensive when we say this because they've been with it long enough that they know the lore. But we're just like, no, 5e is the problem. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when there's so many new people coming into it, I mean, this is the time. This is the time for role playing. So if there's new people getting into it, giving the new folks the most tools at their disposal to make their games more fulfilling and feel more enriched, they should. And like one of my favorite books when I was in high school was a vampire book called The Book of Nod, because it was a book that was an in-universe book, and it was the first time I'd ever seen something like that, and it totally blew my mind because I went into my comic shop and I was like, what is this evil-looking book? And I started flipping through it, and I realized that it was for the role-playing game, but it wasn't the role-playing game, and it's like, wow, that things can be different, and they can make you pull you into the setting.
Yeah, 100%. Like, just feeling like you know the world and you can just step into the world, and it does so much for, at least for me, because he's a natural storyteller. I am not, and I need all the help and crutches and everything that I can get. And so when I have another universe that's already pre-established to play with, and I can see like, ooh, I want to pull in this string or pull in that string, that helps me out tell stories. So that's why I find Pathfinder and Starfinder to be a little bit easier to tell story in than D&D.
I was gonna say, like, for Vast Grimm too, like, it's it's definitely open for that. And I think your supplement did a really good job of kind of hinting at things and creating the feeling of a lived-in universe without a lot of pages, right?
Right.
And but like, is there yeah, like, do you have in mind maybe even just stories that you want to tell, or that you might have told by other folks in addition to these adventures?
It depends what other people put out, because the way I write, I don't write at any length. That's just not how I write. I like way before RPGs, I self-published some comic books years and years ago. I tend to write in small chunks. I see things in my head and I kind of write it that way. And writing long form stuff just isn't me, and I'd never be able to commit to it. So continuing to put out these little like nuggets for other people to build on, like I have ideas of like big picture arcs of things that could happen in the universe depending on if it makes it till the end of your campaign, and something else bigger will happen in the next hardcover book that I've started mapping out. And but then also like creating other like little mini adventures, like little zine style adventures, is what I'm going to kind of focus on, to have more like, here's a character, here's somebody of interest, it helps build out the universe more. You can add on to that, take away from it, and just keep. I'm hoping the community will build it and make it really fill it with life and enrich it more than Ross and I ever could.
And I feel like Vast Grimm benefits from having it be ambiguous. Like, you wrote a lot of it to be, is this just a myth or is this reality? And I think that that's a universe where nobody really knows what's going on exactly. And so having everything be a little bit ephemeral it helps that storytelling, and everybody's kind of living in uncertainty, and so it's a little different, and I like the way y'all do it. And I think like throwing more like stories and fairy tales and myths is fantastic for that universe.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely help a lot. We're about 20 minutes from the end. If there's anybody that's viewing that has any questions for Theo and Grady, especially if they're new to you, because this is the first Vast Grimm Netwurk Chatter. I've known them for just a little while, but if you have any questions about what they do, feel free to mention it in the chat, either Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook. Just wanted to throw that out, that we can take questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, we're known primarily for reviewing minis. We supposedly have a big old box from WizKids that should be showing up next week. And so we don't know what's in it. There's a big new Tiamat mini that's coming out soon. There's a new Pathfinder set. There's all sorts of cool stuff coming out from WizKids soon. So if you have questions about minis and terrain and stuff like that, like, we're the people to ask probably.
So if you're going to be running Starfinder stuff, are there any minis in particular that you would start to use, or any that you might suggest that we use in a tabletop version of Vast Grimm?
So WizKids, I'm sorry, you wrote this.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think you have something else to say.
No, I know what you want.
Oh, well, I'm not sure what you're thinking. I have 100 things in my mind right now. But WizKids finally launched their Starfinder Battles pre-painted Starfinder minis. Their line. They do Pathfinder Battles. They do Icons of the Realms for D&D. And so once a year, we're getting a full booster set of Starfinder minis. And they've also started doing unpainted Starfinder minis. So I'm glad.
In addition to the ones from Archon Studio, who also produces Starfinder.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're over there on the shelf there. You can grab some of those Starfinder Archon minis. There's one. Great, there's one right there if you can grab it up itself. But yeah, Archon Studios does some unpainted ones. Including my favorite one right here, which is their little space. I can't know what camera we're on. There we go. Our space goblin set.
Nice. Yep. Awesome.
So, and you get a whole like set of like, we got our lights on us, but you can see the little.
Very nice.
Group of space goblins with the little helmet on. So those are great places to start. They have unpainted versions. What were you thinking of, Grady? That I was gonna say.
Oh, just all the like Starfinder has like any animal you can think of.
Oh yeah, like the otter people, the Brennari, I think they're called. Yeah, I love all that. They have a cat race, an otter race, a walrus race.
You can literally cross over Humblewood with Vast Grimm.
Yeah,
nice.
So those are all great. And there's a huge community on Patreon of people creating sci-fi terrain, sci-fi scatter terrain. If you want to build out like your space station, your spaceships, if you have a 3D printer at home, there's a ton of great creators on there. We're going to try to feature more of them on the channel. Just awesome. 3D. 3D printing reviews take a lot more time than like pre-painted mini reviews because I actually have to make the minis.
Yep.
And so and we have a resin printer, so it's just like I have to do it without poisoning myself or the cats.
Yep. Don't do that.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting it to work right now, but yeah, Patreon is a great place to start too and look for Starfinder stuff or sci-fi stuff. Oh, and
Awesome.
What's the website that you can go Thingiverse or Thingiverse?
Thingiverse,
Yeah, they have a lot of sci-fi stuff there too. So yeah, if you're looking for minis for that, Archon Studios also has. I just happen to have the studio. We're not totally shilling for them, but they have like, this is like different rooms you can get on Space Station. The Xenogenesis room, and these are pretty cheap, unpainted stuff. Yeah, I just have it in front of me because I'm trying to get ready to write a review of it.
Awesome.
So they have a lot of cool terrain too. If you need cheap sci-fi terrain.
Nice, very cool. There was a question. Yeah, what's your favorite monster to run?
Oh God, my favorite monster to run.
While he's thinking about this, I'm going to point out that I think the only monster you've run that has killed a player has been the Beholder.
Yeah, the Beholder.
Yeah.
I do like monsters that make the players change up their usual routines, because I think a lot of players can find, a routine that they get in that they use in every battle and it works for them. And so anything that changes that up is great. I really like Matt Mercer came up with their what are they called? The like the reverser, the nullifier, and something else. And it really plays with it's in their what's the name of the book?
The Wild Mount, Explorer's Guide to Wild
Explorer's Guide to Wild Mount. Yeah, the nullifier, the reverser, and something else. And they really make people, especially spellcasters, it plays with their spells, it plays with healing, and all these things that the players might do, and it makes them change their methods. And I haven't gotten to play those monsters yet, but I can see those being a lot of fun. And the Beholder is, of course, fun just because it's a little bit of randomness, too, that you never, you don't know what's going to happen, and you lose a little bit of control. Yep. So especially if you don't mind rolling in front of your players, there's a lot of intense edge-of-your-seat gameplay there, and I like that. That lends to good storytelling and some fun game moments.
I like not being able to pull punches as a DM.
Yeah.
Like Vast Grimm, right?
Yeah.
You don't roll them.
Yeah. And y'all are going to have the thing, too, where you can, roll up your random character, too. It's like if your character gets... Is it up?
Yep. It's up on the website now. It's on Vast Grimm under the Progenitor page. Yeah. So you can just click, and keep refreshing it. Print. You can save out PDFs of them. So it's sometimes it's fun for just that. I'm debating whether or not to print out a stack of them and just keep them with me at all times, especially once conventions are back to the way they used to be.
Yeah, get them on cardstock and take them around. Yeah, you can have a lot of fun with that.
You said back before, in the before times, you would go to PAX South. At the end of that, were you saw Acquisitions Inc. Had you already started playing by the last PAX South that you went to?
Yes.
Yeah,
he actually was running some games for people out of our hotel room at PAX South.
Yeah, we pulled people in and we did some little intro adventures. I started going out in the community here in Houston and going to. We have a good Houston Gamer, Gaymer. There's a huge group of gamers there that meet up once or twice a month, and I went out to try to introduce a lot of them to D&D. And so I sat down at the table and put up a little sign and ran some games for folks here. And then I did the same thing at PAX South. Had a ton of fun there, made some friends. I think the best thing that we ever did, though, was we got to go to D&D Live back in 2019.
Yeah,
2019. And that's where we met a ton of awesome people in the community. Michaela, who now works at Twitch, and Michelle, who works for Apple and has been involved in a lot of our stuff too, and worked closely with Satine. And yeah, D&D Live was so much. Oh, we met Ashley Warren there. Were you at that event? I don't know if you were there or not.
No, I'm pretty far out of the main D&D circle. But I've been to, when you were about PAX South, I've been to PAX East, so that's why I was just kind of curious to hear more about that. But
PAX South was PAX South was the forgotten PAX. I feel like not many people. It's the smallest PAX. I think it's the one that the main companies don't show up to, but it's got a pretty good tabletop representation there. A lot of
Hmm.
good indie studios are there too. So it's a lot of fun if you like the things off the beaten track. Like we
Cool.
enjoyed Pack South, and we hope they come back with it this year. It's usually in January, and I don't think anybody
No,
said anything.
it's not going to be
Yeah.
January, but I
Yeah.
think they're trying to do it later this year.
Okay.
There's always PAX Unplugged as well. If that's a
Right,
bit
which is
further
which
forward.
is I mean that's so close to that. I'm surprised they didn't do it. Michael's jumping out. Have a good gaming session on
Thanks,
YouTube. We
Michael.
have a question about is there anything that you're especially excited about the adventure that you both wrote? I know we talked about what I'm excited about, but is there anything that you two are especially excited about or excited about hearing people experience or anything like that?
I'm gonna start. Can I start?
Okay.
I am so excited because this is a lot. This is Grady's baby, and he came up with like some really interesting characters and that are going to give you a lot of difficult choices. The player's
Yep.
going to make some really difficult choices on who they align with, what they decide to do, how they handle, and the players may end up getting kind of split up as well. They may not be necessarily treated like. That's another cool thing is one group of depending on your party makeup, you're going to be treated very differently when you arrive at the station. And so I think everybody's going to have a vastly different experience, no pun intended, um, with this adventure. And so I love to hear the stories coming out of it. And it's a very dynamic thing that is no two players are going to have the same adventure.
Yep.
It's more of a setting and characters for you to play with, and so I just think it's going to be horrifying and amazing. I don't know if anybody's going to make it out alive, but it's also a right place for you to roll up new characters and have them be there. Like it's no problem to like go through 3 or 4 characters before you get off this place. Grady, what
Yep.
were you going to say?
Yeah, I guess because whenever I try to write adventures, part of the problem why I blow past all the word count limits every time is that, um, yeah, no, when we asked you like, can we go over, and you were like, yes, I was like, this is like that's like what every writer dreams of
Yeah.
Well,
hearing. I was like saying like if I ever run a project, I'm always gonna give writers like 1 to 2,000 words below what the actual plan is, and then like raise it on them at the end, and then they'll be like, "We love you."
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, what I want is like I want it to be different. Like I want groups to go and be like, wait, you did that? I didn't even know that was in the adventure. Like or like I didn't even know that ending was possible. And kind of really be that sort of thing where different tables have completely different experiences. And hopefully this kind of accomplishes that with the different routes and different motivations and different possible characters, some determined by GM, some determined by randomness.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. And so yeah, I'm just kind of curious to see like what happens and what people decide, and the idea that the endings there's a lot of possible endings, and that
Mhm.
I guess in some ways like failure itself is also designed to be possibly a dramatic and satisfying ending, possibly more so than succeeding by the standards of the way the objectives are written. And so I think that's kind of what I'm excited about is how is like hopefully there's going to be a lot of gasp moments and kind of like like remember when that happened kind of moments.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think people are going to have a lot of fun with it, and hopefully we'll get people chiming in and letting us know once it comes out how their adventures go. Because once they do, I will definitely share those with you both.
Please do. Play it on streams or in cons so I can watch. I'd love to see people play this.
Yes, yes. And play it once we have it out. We'll also hopefully have the map pack and everything to go with the Foundry VTT version of Vast Grimm as well. So, because we're diving into that, which has been a lot of fun getting to play in that space.
I have not used Foundry yet, and I keep hearing about it, and I know I need to get into that. I've been playing mostly in person these days, now that we can. Like, I am
That's
taking
awesome.
advantage of playing in person.
I
And
am
so I just,
so ready for that. We have
Yeah.
two kids that are not old enough to be vaccinated yet, so thus there's no in-person gaming for me as of yet, but soon.
yeah.
So
Hopefully soon. Yeah, it's really nice to be able to sit around the table, and I think not to shill for ourselves any more than we already have, but like
That's totally fine.
our actual plays are just filmed at everybody sitting around the table, and I
Yep.
think that kind of makes a big difference because I think we're all used to watching. If we do enjoy watching games, we've been watching people play in little boxes, like we're in a box right now,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like so seeing people sitting around the table playing is kind of I think a little refreshing. So I enjoy just experiencing that again.
And there's also the way when it's easier to recognize people's like body movement and gestures and things like that, and be able to play off of one another in character when you're sitting around in the same room. There's little things that you notice, and little things that don't get as distracting as little things popping up on a screen somewhere, that it's just easier to stay in character, I think, and play it all together.
And not worried about stepping on each other too much, because there's a lot of like nonverbal communication going on around the table. So I think when you're on the screen, you're worried about speaking over somebody, and you can't have side conversations. A lot of D&D's like, when it's not your turn, like, should we do this? Should we do that? And you can't do that when you're on the stream. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff we're missing that we don't even think about.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of the show. Is there anything that you two would like to talk about, or mention anything that you want to reiterate about upcoming projects that you want to share?
If you want,
where's the plush?
I think it's downstairs. If you can go, I can fill the air while you talk.
Okay, awesome. I'll go run grab it.
Cool. I think I know what you're grabbing.
Yeah, we're hoping to do our first Kickstarter maybe, but if shipping ever fixes itself worldwide,
yeah.
But yeah, no, actually, it occurred to me that the thing I'm actually the absolute most excited for our adventure is seeing what the final layout will look like, because Vast Grimm is so art dense, and and part of me was just writing this and they're gonna have to make maps for this, and I don't have to think about it. So, but like, yeah, it'll be super cool to see how that's interpreted and like what art gets added, and just seeing because like there's nothing more boring than reading your text in a Word document. Like when you're when you're writing a novel, it's fine. Although even then, like I'm the sort of person who likes to used to make word art of the title, and then like add the little section breaks, little decorations. I'm like, it looks nice.
It just breaks it up, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a bad habit of writing in layout for a lot of ttRPG stuff, which is a terrible idea, because you change something and you have to redo everything. But yeah, no, it's just like seeing something on a white background versus like tiger shooting lasers out of its eyes. Like
things just completely splattered everywhere. Yeah,
so that's not what we're producing, Theo.
I'm bringing a surprise. Maybe
we're not. That is not for sale. The cat is not for sale.
Spoilers.
The cats are never for sale.
Oh my god, this is a tight studio we have here. I brought many things. Let's show and tell before we go.
Excellent.
This is Grady's hardcover book, The Grey Merchant of Asphodel, which you can get printed out on DN's Guild. It's a full magic item supplement that's super cool and full of really cool art.
Fantastic.
There's a lot of reflections.
That's just the back. They made us take the logo off of it too. So
this is Fiddle. Fiddle is my 18-year-old baby, who just got a clean bill of health after going through cancer.
Oh, congratulations, Fiddle.
Wanted to bring him up. We were very happy about that this week.
Yes.
And this is our Cobalt plush.
One of
our little Cobalt plushies that we're hoping to kickstart and get a whole little group of them. Grady, did you talk about your adventure?
I guess not. Yeah, so we have a portion of our site that can be short linked through bonfirebytes.com, and it's a little webcomic about these kobolds, so people can get to know them, and there may be a twist coming up that may not be expected, but you'll see in a few weeks when we get to that. And
awesome.
We're trying to release about one panel a week. It may slow down a bit as we run out of what we've stockpiled, because art is hard. And then we're also trying to do like other things with it. Like we're trying to release free, short, low-level adventures. And the idea is kind of like the kobolds are sitting around a bonfire at night after traveling on the side of the road, and they're telling each other stories. And so again, it's like, this may or may not be a fully real story, but you get to play through it. And so you could be the kobolds if you want. We're going to plan to release character sheets for each of them, or you could just play your own characters, because it's a story they're telling. It's not what they're doing. And so we have our first one out. It's called,
it's so good.
It's being told by the bard, and so it's called There Was an Old Dragon Who Swallowed a Gnome. And it's a it's a copper dragon with a toothache. So his gnome friend tries to help, but he gets nervous and he hiccups, and she goes down his throat, and now you gotta go try to save her. And there's like so many mechanics. We had to put a content warning up for bodily fluids, though.
Excellent.
You can make the dragon throw up. You can try to knock him out. Like all sorts of.
Are you supposed to put content warnings for that sort of thing?
We try to be err on the side of safety.
Yep.
It's a filter on the adventure page, so like you can just
Excellent.
filter out the adventures you don't want to see.
I don't know about you, but I need content warning dentist sometimes because I am.
Oh yeah, I was like, he's scared of the dentist. I was like, my first one's gonna be all about teeth.
Perfect.
But so yeah, those are completely free PDFs to download, the short little things to run. We're hoping down the line, because one of our one of the people who was in the Storm King's Thunder campaign is in a lot of his actual plays, Alex. She's also a really amazing cook. And so we were like, let's put together some recipes of like little bonfire bites that these kobolds could be eating around there. And we might try to do little recipes themed around each adventure. So we're trying to look into like if it's possible to use like white chocolate and like pistachio and nougat crumble and make like little dragon teeth chocolate truffles.
Nice.
And things like that, and maybe do that. We're getting like way out there now.
I think you can see why we never sleep. Like we wake up in the morning.
There's so many projects all the time to work on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we definitely need to. And we're going on vacation for the first time in 3 years in 2 weeks, and I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you, and thanks for letting us show all our products for the last little while.
Absolutely. Well, I guess that brings us to 9. I'm gonna wrap up with a couple of things real quick, some housekeeping for Infinite Black and for Vast Grimm. First, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, follow Infinite Black wherever you tapped into the network, whether it be Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. In the news, I mentioned earlier, our first game jam launches on Friday. It's the 15th through the 29th. The theme is Spoiled Spoils. There should be a link down in wherever the show notes show up in this thing. Saturday, this is pretty crazy, Free RPG Day. If you don't know about it, go to freerpgday.com and see if there's a shop near you. Guess what? We've got Into the Wormhole, a little mini adventure that we planned out. We had printed. It went out to 1,100 stores. If they got it, they got at least 6 copies. So go try and snag one and run a little mini adventure. Next Wednesday, we'll be launching our first actual play of Vast Grimm, same time at 7 p.m. Central, here in the same spot that you're at now. If you want to see how Vast Grimm is run and played, I will be running it with a fantastic cast. And then the following week, we'll return to another episode of the Network Chatter with David Gallagher and Dave Cole, who also wrote an adventure for Volatile Verse. Vast Grimm is available as a PDF on both itch and drive-thru, and physical copies can be pre-ordered on GameFound, or you can go to vastgrimm.com and go to the various links. Until next time, first off, thank you, Grady and Theo. I really appreciate you being here and being on the very first episode of the Network Chatter. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you. So much fun. It was an honor to be on the inaugural episode. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah,
you wanted to talk to us first, but okay.
Yeah, we can talk for hours, too. Like, next time you have a free segment, bring us back. We'll talk for hours.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, everyone, until next time, keep the network buzzing.